this among ourselves, to just ensure that there's nobody else in the room with you. I mean, in the your physical room.
Right.
Sometimes my dog joins me.
Yeah.
Well, does the pack get to stay? Or we have to go away?
No, the pack has to go. Sorry.
Okay, that's what because I think I did it once a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay, no problem. You can do it. You don't need me.
Okay, let's see. Oh, we're right up on 4. Do we have, Christy, do we have a quorum at this point yet? I believe we do.
Yes,
Yep.
we do.
Great. Okay. Well, everybody ready to go?
Yep.
Let's go.
Okay.
Do it.
Okay, great. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the November 18th meeting of the Humboldt County Association of Governments. And as we have been doing since March of this year, and pursuant to the governor's order, this meeting is via Zoom. And we'll let people know as we go along how you can join to make comments if you so wish on any agenda item. But with this, I'm going to call the meeting to order. And let's have a roll call on that, please.
Okay, Mayor Jones,
Here.
Mayor Seaman,
Here.
Councilmember Smith, Councilmember Smith.
You need to
I
get
think
your
you're on
mic
mute.
on, Robin.
He looks like he's working on it.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll come back to him.
There
Councilmember
he is.
Johnson.
He's on now. He's on now, Christy.
Okay. Councilmember
Hey
Smith,
there. Just give us a thumbs up, Councilmember. Okay.
thank
great.
you. Councilmember Johnson,
Here.
Councilmember Stroud,
Here.
Councilmember West,
Here.
Supervisor Fennel,
Here.
Councilmember Patino,
Here.
Kevin Tucker.
Here.
Thank you. And Mayor Winkle is absent today.
Thank you, Christy.
Welcome.
With that, we're now going to adjourn as the HCAOG board and convene as the Policy Advisory Committee. This Policy Advisory Committee convenes to include representation from Caltrans and HCA, the Humboldt Transit Authority, and that's for items specific to transportation. So at this point, we do have a public participation agenda item where you can speak on items that are not on the agenda. Again, I'll limit input to 3 minutes. If we have any members of the public who would like to speak. Now, I don't believe we do, Christy, but please let me know if you see anybody here wishing to speak.
Okay, it looks like we have no public comment.
Okay, thank you, Christy. So with that, we'll go on to item number 3, which is approval of the meeting records from September 17th. And first of all, I guess, any discussion on the minutes from September 17th? No?
I'll move to approve them.
A
Right.
second.
We have a motion and a second. Again, looking at the participants, I do not see any public attendees, but I'll ask Christy if you see anybody that I don't see here wishing to comment.
No, I do not.
Thank you, Christy. With that, we have a motion and a second, and let's do a roll call vote on the consent calendar, please.
Mayor
On the
Jo-
minutes, you mean? This is on the minutes? Is this what I'm understanding?
Yes, that's correct. Yes,
Okay.
that's the only item on the consent calendar, Mayor Jones.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith, think we lost him. Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Strawn,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Supervisor Fennel,
Yes,
Councilmember Patino,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
thank you very much, Christy. Now, I'm not sure if everybody's seen this note, but item 5A, which was a presentation on the Eureka Broadway Multimodal Corridor Plan, has been pulled from this agenda. The presentation isn't ready yet. Is that correct, Una?
Yeah, this is Marcella.
Oh, Marcella, it was Marcella. Yeah, right.
The
Sorry.
document was not ready for to release to the public yet. The project team hasn't had a chance to review it. And so
Okay.
the decision was we need a document in addition to a
Yeah.
presentation. And the plan
Yeah.
will be for the board to consider it, hopefully at the December meeting, the draft document. And then we'll have another month before the board has the option or the consideration to approve it or not. So we want to give the public.
Understanding is that the draft document's like 100 pages long, so it'd be nice for us to have more than a couple days to read it. Can we get?
Yes. So I just thought it best to delay it for a month, and we'll try to get it out as soon as possible.
Thank you, Marcella. And let me just say, it's great to see you. You've been joining us via phone for the last while. Very
Yeah,
nice
I
to
dug
see
my
you.
personal computer out of the closet, and it was Windows 10, so it took like a couple hours for things to upload. But
That's great. Great. Good to see you. So that will bring us to item 5B. And this comes to us from Una Smith, Senior Planner, and it is a Regional Early Action Planning Program for Accelerating Housing Opportunities. Welcome, Una.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So this is a presentation, just informational, and definitely here to answer questions. I am practicing brevity, so I'm going to go through this hopefully shorter than longer, because I realize I can always give you more of my time, but I can't give you time back. So just chime in anytime if I am going too fast. And with that, I will start off that what I'm going to overview today is first just the overview of what is the REAP program, then HCAOG's roles and responsibilities with this funding, and then the intended outcomes with the funding that both we got and funding for the whole region. Are there any problems so far with the slideshow?
No, it's perfect. Working real
Great.
well.
Okay. So the first part is overviewing what is this Regional Early Action Planning Grant Program. Many of you probably will recognize that it echoes the LEAP program for local early action planning for housing, of which some local jurisdictions have already got some of their grants through that. That started a few years earlier than REAP. So REAP money comes from Governor Newsom's 2019-20 budget, and it's going to fall down like snowflakes, as the slide shows, to pay for housing planning activities. And the kinds of eligible activities are those planning activities that show a direct nexus to increasing housing. The money is going through the State Department, Housing and Community Development, and they are funneling most of the money through two pipes, as it were. So most of it goes to COGS as the regional entity. Where that doesn't apply, it'll go straight to counties. And then they also have awarded a really big contract for technical assistance. So some private consultants will be working statewide to give housing technical assistance. And we have a portion of that team that they call the North Team, and they're helping us and other rural counties who are our neighbors. And I'm happy to report that one of the people on the North Team is a woman who lives in McKinleyville, which I think that's fantastic for us. So The North team consultants will be working directly with us, and we also get direct assistance from HCD staff. So what do we have to do with this money? Basically, we have the board's role is determine how can the REAP money be used in our region best and most effectively to increase housing production. So staff's job is to consult with stakeholders to inform the board on what is the general consensus, and then the funds can be used for sub-allocations. So we can, HCAOG can set up like a grant program to give the money straight to any or all of the cities and the county. And the NOFA says, I have just a quote here, and that the eligible use is sub-allocation of monies directly and equitably to jurisdictions or other sub-regional entities in the forms of grants for planning. And if we did sub-allocate the kind of technical assistance and other planning tasks that the money can be spent on is anything, again, that improves housing planning, such as your permitting process. Also infrastructure planning, if you need that would accelerate permitting housing. It can be used to set up a housing trust fund, and it can be used for feasibility studies. The money can pay for staffing, so that can be people you have in-house, or you can hire temporary staffing, or you can use the money for consultants. So you all, I'm speaking to you as your individual jurisdictions, and we can also use all of that money through or to HCAOG for the same kinds of tasks. So the technical assistance stuff, this is a slide from another COG, and what they're doing is offering a consulting bench to all of their jurisdictions. And so as requested, the jurisdictions might pick anything on this diagram, like, yes, we want help on our housing element. And so that COG is going to pay for consultants to help that jurisdiction on their housing element. So here's just a couple of the ideas of needs that either technical assistance from consultants or maybe from the statewide technical assistance team can help any jurisdiction on with. Okay, so what is our COG's role and responsibility specifically in this? So we have $783,000. It's one-time funding. The program allowed the COGs to ask for an advance of up to 25%. HCAOG requested 8%, and we front-loaded that mostly to help us work in the beginning months to apply for then the full funding. So HCAOG may not, we definitely won't use all the 60,000 for the application, but we may use it later. So there is 92% left, or about $723,000 to decide how will we apply for that in January. So I think one of the first questions that pops into many people's minds is how much money are we talking about if we sub-allocate? So a simple way to start the discussion, if we were to sub-allocate and then just go ahead and went ahead and used the RENA percentages as the basis for sub-allocating that money, you can see the way it would divide up. It kind of goes pretty fast, and some cities get a pretty small amount of money. That what I want to be able to discuss is, will that do the most effective stuff, or should a regional project be invested in? Maybe that would help even a small city more. So our advance activities, again, it's stuff to do outreach, to find the needs in the different jurisdictions, to find out what is consensus on best practices, planning needs, what is the consensus on how do we equitably sub-allocate, and then what is our budget for going for the application? And so I'll be convening and collaborating deep and wide as I can until January. So at your January board meeting is when you'll have to approve a grant application, which is due to HCD on January 31st. And then the advance funds that HCAOG has will also be used for education and outreach. So that can be anything from education to the general public. You know, what do ADUs look like? What is infill? Or it can be much more targeted to staff, for example. If there are workshops that housing planning staff want to help them, then that kind of education can also, HCAOG would fund that. Okay, so what I've already done is I had in October a roundtable with housing planning staff so I could understand what are the needs that immediately they wanted to put on the table, and also for them to understand what REAP is. Then I had an introductory planning meeting with the technical assistance team. And then I had, on November 9th, we had another roundtable, which was housing planning staff, including CSD staff and the HCD staff and the TA team. And they surveyed our planners to ask, you know, from their perspective of what they're going to be able to offer our region, what were planners interested in. So I don't think any of this will come as surprises to anyone here, but just as a really quick, you know, tell me what are your biggest barriers. This word cloud shows what the different jurisdictions said are the biggest barriers. And you can see the biggest ones were spelling. It was no participation in infill, and then and people who could do ADUs just weren't interested in having an accessory dwelling unit. And then also locations near transportation. And then you can see the other things that they're all tied to one another as well. So then the TA team surveyed, you know, what on a regional collaborative aspect, what kind of opportunities would help you the most. And the thing that came out the top for the people at that meeting were the job, housing's transportation nexus and balance, and then also a regional sites inventory. So that means for the whole county, what are the sites that are perhaps easiest to build on fastest? So for example, they'd have the least environmental constraints, and then some nexus studies and other stuff came in third and fourth. And then they asked them just open-ended question, what is missing in the support that you would need to address housing in your community? And you can just see what the participants typed in: interjurisdictional coordination, social justice, and racial equity. Again, some property owners just are not interested in developing. Historic preservation, infrastructure, CEQA exemptions, high priority sites, again, helping people with high priority sites with permitting if they are willing and able. And you can see prevailing wage and de-emphasize large developments. So the short-term outcomes that I am working on, to reiterate, get survey of needs, assess priorities from the localities, coordinate and facilitate to find consensus, and identify the best practices for equitable outcomes. My outreach is to all the jurisdictions, governments, and then also housing activity agencies and services. And there's just a short list of some of the people already on our stakeholder list. Community-based organizations and advocacy groups. So this is everything from people who understand the homeless needs in our community to people who know more about what are the barriers directly to developers, to people who are thinking for what are we going to do when our baby boomers who want to stay here and age in place, what's available to them and what's not available to them. And then local professional services, planners, financial, real estate, everything housing touches. I hope those people know that this is available and that they get any of their comments to me. First required activity, I have to know these things for preparing the draft application that is due January 31st, a strategy of best practices that promote a sufficient regional supply of housing affordable to all income levels. And I haven't said it explicitly yet, but I'm sure you know that this is all tied to the RHNA, Regional Housing Needs Assessment allocation numbers that we have to come up with. And then our second required activity, strategy to inform local agencies of the need and benefits of taking early action for regional housing allocations. So the next big important deadline is at the January 21st, when I'll be asking for the resolution to submit the full grant application. And that will be to turn in the grant application on the 31st, asking for our $723,000. So that is the PowerPoint, and oh, that came up third. Okay, in November, we're starting monthly meetings for local staff, others, HCD, and the TA team is going to be joining us at those. So I will stop sharing now so I can see.
Great.
all
Oh,
the
well, thank you
cameras.
thank you, Una. Appreciate that very much. Any questions or comments from the board at this point? Well, yeah, Mayor Seaman.
I think I know the answer, but I just want to clarify. Local staff is the different municipality staff, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Mayor Jones.
Are you planning, Una, to come to city council meetings, or you're just going to get input from our city staff members?
I was hoping that if any of the city staff knew that their councils would be interested, that they would tell me. But if you're telling me now that, I will accept it and plan it. And I would be happy to talk to council. We're in such a short time frame, though. I would also want to know, do you want most of this information before the application? Or do you also think it would be helpful after we put in the application and start implementing this stuff? And what I didn't mention was we have until the end of 2023 to spend this money. Although HCD is asking for the final invoices kind of early. They were initially asking for last invoices in August, but they're being a little bit more flexible than that.
I think what I was thinking of, I mean, I can bring this back as I always do when I report to council. I'm just thinking of if they have any specific questions. It would be nice to have that PowerPoint to clarify it for them if they're not clear about what it's about.
Yes, I mean, I would be glad to run through the PowerPoint in virtual person. And of course, the PowerPoint I'm going to make available to all of you. And I'm working on getting a new HCAOG website to put all the information and links on.
So
Okay,
Una,
that'd be good.
Una, this is Paul. You know, we got 2 new council members, and we'll have a new mayor maybe, and there's going to be a lot of changes in Arcata, and it's the new people have no knowledge of all the acronyms or any of that. So I think the sooner we can get this to them so they can develop their questions, the better. Okay.
Yes.
Because there's a big learning curve to understand, you know.
Absolutely. Yeah. And January will be their first meeting?
No, December. Second
okay.
meeting in December. So
Okay.
actually, if you could do second meeting in December for City of Arcata. PowerPoint, everybody's got a college degree. They should be able to eat this pretty easy, but they have to see it.
Okay.
Sounds
Thanks.
good. Una, I had a question about, you were saying you were hoping that they know. Are you asking us to maybe spread the word out with other entities that were listed in the PowerPoint?
Oh, sure.
So that
Yeah,
okay.
absolutely.
Okay, we'll do
I
that.
mean,
Great.
yeah, and even if people hear of it 2 or 3 times, that's even better. Yeah.
So just a quick question on the process. So we basically become the grantors.
Yes.
And so what would the process be after the money comes through? Is it that people will then put in applications to HCAOG, or will we talk among ourselves representing our various districts and what should go where?
It would be that it is HCAOG's duty to create the grant program and administer it.
Okay, so the cities, counties, local entities would then approach HCAOG. Okay, great. One of the things I was just thinking of is that it seems to be a lot of the voters have supported the concept of the county being involved in housing to the extent that we could go for grants, etc., to help in these kinds of things. So I think you can expect to hear from the county on this for sure. Yeah. Okay. Any further comment or questions for Una on this?
Just a comment that we did apply and receive a LEAP grant and have been working on that. And I'm sure that our planner was in contact with Una at the meetings. And so we're trying to get up to speed and on the front end of this. And we have had some success with our people in ADUs. So
yeah,
hopefully that continues. But anyways, I look forward to this getting up to speed. And there is, as Council Member Patino said, there is a lot of acronyms involved in this to tack on above the transportation items. So
yeah, right.
whole new language, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was at LAFCO meeting just yesterday, and we were talking about which entities might deal with some of this. And this program had not been discussed at that point. So I'll pass that on there too, because we were talking about HCAOG basically being a pass-through for funding, mainly for transportation, but other infrastructure, etc., technical assistance. Yeah, that's great. We'll take it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll mention for those jurisdictions who already have gotten into the LEAP step, the technical assistance team that was hired for LEAP was also the successful team for REAP. So some of your city staff, have already worked with some of those people and started relationships.
Una, I have a couple of little questions. I did get that the Housing Trust Fund can take, this money could be used to start the Housing Trust Fund.
Yes, so definitely it can be used for any administrative planning, all that kinds of stuff to set up a Housing Trust Fund.
Oh, okay, sorry,
It's
I
not,
misunderstood.
it's not clear yet if they would let it be like seed money.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then
Wonderful.
the other question was, when we're talking about how you distribute the funds, it would be helpful for, I'm thinking, new council members to understand that the way that it's divided up and how much money it actually takes to do any grant. Like you mentioned, if the money's so small to little entities, they might as well not get anything. So we need to think about, like, the minimum amount that the small entities could get that wouldn't totally destroy the division by population of the bigger entities. Am I making sense? You know, like a
That-
base.
The
Yeah, like
very
a base.
last part.
The base amount
Okay.
that little cities would get would come out of the whole pot, but what's left would be divided population wise. I mean, could be, whatever.
Could be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, I just started, I did a few of them. I got down as far as Arcata. Rio Del was like a little under 11,000. That was the smallest in the first 5 that I did. But looking at Rio Del, I think that they probably would appreciate any help, you know, technical help they could do in addressing those issues. So I wouldn't want to say just because
Absolutely.
small amount, it's a small amount that they don't need it, you know. I think that
Right, but Blue Lake and Trinidad
Mhm.
probably are a lot smaller than that.
yeah, I didn't go that far down.
Trinidad would be less than 4,000 and Blue Lake would be less than 5,000.
Okay.
And Ferndale would be
gotcha.
just 7,000. One idea that came up at the second roundtable was, so one of the cities said, well, maybe this money could pay for a regional housing REAP planner. And then that staff person would be available to the smaller cities the way that they have their contract engineers.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, you know, I could see where a staff person for 2 years helping out would be more valuable than getting $3,800 cash.
Yeah.
So it's
Oh
also
yeah, definitely yeah, that's a good idea. Well, it's exciting. Let's first get to the point of getting the money double. Let's see, Christy, I still don't see any non-board member attendees, but if there are, I'd like to put this out for public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item?
There is no public comment.
Thanks, Christy. Okay, well, thank you very much, Una.
Thank
Any
you.
other discussion? Any questions? Okay.
Chair Fennell, I would just like
Yes.
to add one thing to add to my
Mhm.
answer to Mayor Seaman about local staff. Already at the roundtables, I also had planning staff from private firms who have worked on general plan updates and housing elements before.
Mhm. Okay. Great. Thank you, Una.
Thank you.
I think maybe we need, is it okay if I just say that there's consensus that we're accepting the report? Or do we want to take a roll call?
It's just a
I don't-
presentation.
Yeah, so, okay. Thank you, Una. So
you.
thank
Go
you
ahead.
very much. So the next item is item number 6, and this comes to us from Executive Director May, and it is a public hearing to receive comments on unmet transit needs. So we'll get a staff report and then open the public hearing. Welcome, Marcella.
Thank you very much. So this is an annual project, and hopefully most of you remember that this happens every year. I have been to most city council meetings this year for the same issue, just to hear from the public what their needs are for transit. And we have not received any comments. Mostly, obviously, that is due to COVID, the stay-at-home order. I do have some statistics from Humboldt Transit Authority. So in May, the regional system was down 79% ridership. In October, 64. So a little improvement, but still a huge decrease. For the Arcata system, in May, 86% of decrease in ridership. October, it got better to 79%. And for the Eureka system, In May, it was 75%, a decrease in ridership, and now it's only 57%. So that's the good news.
Yeah.
I will say also that with the unmet transit needs, if this board at a meeting next year decides that there are needs reasonable to meet, then those needs need to be met before the funding is used on something not transit related.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a very difficult finding this year to meet the criteria that we have. So when the Social Service Transportation Advisory Council, the SSTAC, who leads this process, they look at the adopted criteria of the board, and they look at operational. Is it safe for a bus? Are there bus stops? And they also look at financial, and we look at the 10% fare box performance measure. So during COVID, it's going to be very difficult to meet that performance measure. So I don't expect any findings next year. I will say, though, that we did have 2 services planned. In July of this year, we were going to be starting a pilot project of late night system from McKinleyville to Eureka.
Right.
And that was due from 2 years ago. A lot of students at Humboldt State University petitioned for that. Those funds were redirected when COVID happened for free bus passes. So we will revisit that, the late night service, if things ever go back to whatever normal is. The other pilot project we were going to find funding for this year was additional service during peak hours. So we would have an express bus in the morning and evening. But now that everyone's stay at home, we're not going to start that pilot project yet. But that'll be an automatic thing that this SSTAC will look at. So I don't see any public on this call on the webinar today on the Zoom, but there's still an opportunity to submit comments to us. One thing that we are looking for is to find out ways to bring public back to public transit. So that might be when the stay-at-home order's gone. Right now there is social distancing on the buses, so the number of riders is limited. But we really want to help the transit authority and the cities in getting people back onto the bus and out of their cars. So if people in the public or if board members have ideas on what we can do once this is over, we are all ears and we will do everything we can to assist with that. So I guess we can open it to the public if there's any, and we will record any comments. The last thing I want to say is we accept comments year round. The deadline for every cycle is going to be December 31st. So what we hear before December 31st will go in the next year's report. And then anything after that, we'll begin trying to get the public input for the next cycle. And with that, I will be quiet and answer questions.
Well, thank you, Marcella. Are there any questions before I put it out to the public? Okay, Mayor Jones, and then Councilmember Strong.
Yeah, thank you, Estelle. I was wondering about PPE for the bus drivers and for riders. For instance, masks available for riders, masks for the drivers, sanitary products such as hand sanitizer and that kind of thing. Did we get any money from the COVID Act for that, or what are the plans for that, or have there been any plans to mitigate those situations?
Yeah, I'm wondering if Paul has more detailed information, but the drivers certainly, they have a divider in the buses. So
and they all wear masks.
HCAOG is doing all they can to keep everyone safe.
Yeah.
I think it was last month or the month before, this board approved the CARES Act 2 funding that went to our transit agencies. And all of those things you mentioned are eligible uses for that.
Good, thank you.
Marcella, just to respond to you, our drivers get all the PPE, and with the plastic plexiglass shield that protects the driver, they're in a pretty safe situation at this point. Plus, the buses are disinfected after use also. So I don't think we're in any need for the drivers. I mean, I'm not sure exactly if the drivers hand out masks. I don't know that they do that, but I could check into that.
I think that would be a good position to take, just to have them available as they get on there, because it is required. So, right? Okay.
I think so.
I
I can follow up with Greg Pratt on that. I will.
Councilmember Stratt.
Yes, thank you, Estelle. I just had some questions regarding the free passes. How are those available to anyone? We had a discussion at our city council meeting regarding our low-income housing project just put in by Danco, and then COVID hit, and the social services programs stopped because of COVID. So we were wondering if there were free passes that we could give to these residents that may get them to services that they need, because Riedel doesn't offer them. So.
Yeah, well, what I know is that when I discussed the funding was redirected for free passes, that was for a certain time period. You could just get on the bus. Everyone could just get on the bus. But I will check with the Humboldt Transit Authority to see what we can do about the low-income housing, so that essential bus trips are available to people. And I'll have a follow-up through an email. Yeah.
Thank you, Marcella. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Any further comment before I go out for public comment? Okay, let's go for a public comment. And I think we're going to be in the same situation. I don't see anybody who's hopped on to speak with us. So we'll bring it back to the board, and thank you very much, Marcella. I really appreciate hearing the updated statistics on the ridership. When we were having our public input presentation at the board, that was a question that came up, and so it's good to see that the ridership increased. Of course, now we are in the red tier now. It doesn't preclude people from public transport at all. So I think that, over time, our job is going to be to just say it's safe, it's done very well, and maybe eventually I know that the Joint Information Center has been doing little videos and movies and everything. It might not be a bad idea to work with HCA and do a movie or little video clips with somebody sitting in there going, yeah, I feel great. I'm glad to be able to use the bus to get back to work, whatever.
Are you volunteering to be in the video?
I'll volunteer the tick. I'll talk to him. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, those guys, they're always coming up with ideas and, straying a little bit, but because we are talking about COVID, no matter many times we talk about masking and social distancing, it seems like we have to keep on doing it for some strange reason. Just have to keep on repeating it. So, that might help. Okie dokie. Any other comments on this? Thank you again, Marcella. I guess people are aware that, well, it's a good sign that there aren't any unmet transit needs screaming at us, at least,
Well, like I said, we have 2 on hold, so
yeah.
Look at those again.
Okay, great. Okay, well, I think we need a motion on this one since this is part of a specific process.
Well, we are just looking for public input, so
okay.
We will just review comments, and I will follow up with the Humboldt Transit Authority.
Great, thank you so much, Marcella. I really appreciate it. So now we're going to PAC action items. And that's item number 7 is 7A, and the only item under this is a consolidated transportation services agency goals. And Una is going to be bringing us that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
So this is on the heels of the CTSA bylaws that were also revised a couple months ago and approved by the board. So the CTSA is the Consolidated Transportation Services Agency. We have one because it was legislated a couple decades ago. And HCAOG right now is contracting HTA to fill that function of the CTSA. And the major goal and objectives and responsibility of the CTSA is to coordinate all social services that help with transportation and all transportation operators so that there are efficiencies throughout our systems. So the CTSA goals, so HTA has to make, as the CTSA, has to make, or at least propose, what to do when the funding is falls short of the needs. And this is pretty timely because we just talked about the unmet transit needs. And they wanted to open the discussions on, okay, so when we don't have enough money, then what are our priorities? And so the SS TAC had a lot of discussions about how can we give the best direction to a CTSA and be consistent and be in align with HCAOG's directives. So that was the impetus for revising the CTSA goals. So I'm going to read more of my staff report than I usually do because this is basically the thing that you are making a motion on today. So this is a draft that I worked with an ad hoc committee, a subcommittee of the SS TAC, an ad hoc subcommittee, and they helped organize and improve language in this. And so this is their unanimous recommendation. So the CTSA goals just starts out with a background on what is a CTSA and why do we have them? And then what is the state's mandated requirements? And then I'm going to read on the second page is then would be HCAOG's customized part. And so this is broken up into two chunks. First, the CTSA goals are outlined under 5 points, and then that is joined with strategies for implementing goals, and then there are 4 strategies. So for the goals, I'm just going to read like the first sentence of each of these 5. So they're not in hierarchical order, but so number 1 listed, meet the minimum dial-a-ride fare box recovery ratio required for ADA complementary service and use that as a performance indicator for supplemental service. So I'll just remind you that the complementary service is required by law. So it's stuff that complements a fixed route. And then the supplemental service is what HCAOG also pays for paratransit trips for people in outlying areas where there's not fixed route service. So that's not required by the state, but HCAOG has done that for many years. All right, and then the second one, make shared ride transportation as affordable as possible for all eligible dial-a-ride riders. The third one, to grow and meet transit demand, fund programs to increase service, that is trip frequency. And fourth, reduce greenhouse gas emissions contributed by transportation while building and maintaining a transportation system that is truly multimodal and equitable. And then administer CTSA duties to advance equity by developing and administering CTSA services that provide service that is equitable, safe, and comfortable for all people. So the strategies for implementing the goals. So this should help a CTSA, whoever is contracted to do it, make the best proposals for how to budget the money. So HCAOG, along with the CTSA, shall evaluate requests for extending service hours, expanding service area, and adding service frequency based on the potential of the new service to meet minimum productivity standards or better. B, HCAOG, along with the CTSA, shall prioritize funding programs with the highest potential to increase ridership and reduce the number of single occupancy vehicle trips in Humboldt County. C, HCAOG, along with the CTSA, shall coordinate long-range transit planning with land use policy, environmental policy, and development projects to help achieve a balanced transportation system. And then D, when weighing the merits of CTSA service strategies, programs, and policies, HCAOG, along with CTSA, shall consider the potential benefits and potential harms for mitigating the global climate emergency and achieving state and local greenhouse gas emission goals and targets. And that is the totality of the revised CTSA goals before you.
Okay. Thank you, Una. Can we go back to, does anybody need to have this on their screen still? Or can we go back to not sharing that? Okay, I think you can go back to and unshare. Thanks, Una. So any questions or comments for Una on this item? Yeah, Councilmember Johnson?
Yes, I just was reading through this and I'm curious as to under strategies for implementing goals, number A, it says applicable minimum productivity standards as outlined in the 5-year transit development plan. I looked at that and I noticed it's laid out with, you know, funding, ridership, and fare box recovery. But I just wondered what the minimum productivity standards are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That would foremost be the fare box, and then the standards. I thought that there were things in there also about like cost per passenger, cost per mile, targets that the consultants, when they did the TDP, they were like, these are kind of agreed upon industry standards when you're running most efficiently for a transit.
Okay, yeah, I saw those, but they were not labeled as.
Okay.
So I thought that
so the nexus is hard to find. Okay,
I even looked in the appendix and went through there.
Good for you. Okay, so I will look at the wording and change either these or those to make it really clear that which apples are apples.
And it might just be my nerdness. I don't know, but because
it jumped out at me too. It jumped out at me too, Mike.
Okay.
Okay. Well, I did notice in the TDA or Transit Development Plan, the overall document, there was in the table of contents a section just for that was labeled Transit Development Plan. And I looked at it, but I didn't see anything that jumped out at me to define what the standards were.
Okay.
Right.
Great.
Yeah.
Good feedback.
Thank you.
Definitely. Yeah. I hadn't heard that one, so I was curious about it too. Any other questions? I had one, if I could find my glasses, here they are. I'm just curious about sharing rides, you know, just kind of offshoot transportation. Is that affected at all now by the vote that passed Uber and Lyft's plan that people can be contractors and not employees? And would that?
Not in this circumstance. What we're talking about is just what CTSA is coordinating. So the shared ride, paratransit does do shared rides as much as possible. And of course, it's much limited now under COVID. But when they go out with their van, they try to pick up, 3 or 4 passengers in a van more often than just a single passenger. So that's what we're referring to there.
Yeah. Okay. Right. I just wondered if there were entrepreneurs out there who might bring other services in. So we'll see how that goes. Okay. Any other questions or comments? We'll go for public comment on this item. Any public comment? And still don't see anybody out there that's not part of the panel.
No.
So no public comment on this item. Okay, bring it back to the board. And we do have a suggested motion, so put it out there.
I
Mayor
would
Jones?
move to recommend that the HCAOG board adopt the Humboldt County Consolidated Transportation Services Agency goals as recommended by the Social Services Transportation Advisory Council.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. So let's go to Christy for a roll call.
May I ask a clarifying question?
Absolutely, please.
Did you want to consider that staff can amend just words to make it more clear about the minimum productivity standards?
Okay, that's good.
Thank you, Ina.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll amend my motion to include that some language be added to item, was that B? No, item A.
Strategy, so it was A.
A, yeah, that some language be added to item A to further explain what the standards for the minimum productivity are.
Okay, now I'll second that amended motion.
Thank you very much, Una. Really appreciate you catching that. Good. Okay. All right, Christy.
Okay. Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Strawn,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Supervisor Fennell,
Yes.
Councilmember Patino,
Yes.
Mr. Tucker.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Christy. So now we will reconvene as the HCAOG board and request a motion in that regard.
I make a motion, we reconvene as the HCAOG board and approve PAC recommendations.
I'll second.
And we have a motion and a second, and I don't believe we have any public comment on that. So we'll go to Christy for a roll call again, please.
Mayor Jones,
Yes.
Mayor Seaman.
Sorry, yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Councilmember Strawn,
Yes.
Councilmember West,
Yes.
Supervisor Fennell.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you, Christy. Okay, we're on now to item 9A, and that is Caltrans report on the 101 corridor project. Kevin, you're up.
Okay. Well, so grading at the Samoa wetland mitigation site has been completed. Planting at the site will begin this month. Final design is proceeding on the Indianola undercrossing project. And the plan for that is to be completed by January 15th of 2021. Savings from some of the low bids for the mitigation project are on the agenda for the December 2020 CTC meeting.
Yeah, Kevin, do you mind if I just add a little to that?
Sure.
So next week, or actually this, on this December 2nd is the CTC meeting, and we expect to get $1.8 million back credited to our STIP account. We're currently $500,000 in the hole, so we will be 1.3. And I do have, we'll be emailing my cohort at the CTC, not a cohort, my contact at the CTC, to see if we can, if we have to wait until the regular STIP cycle to program those funds, or if we can program those immediately. So in January or February. So I will get back to you next month on that answer. If so, we should use that money since it's, it's been a couple of years since we dedicated it. So I will update the board next month.
It seems to me, I mean, this is just a common sense approach. I would imagine since the refund, we should have it, but
I'm just confirming. I would too, but sometimes things that make sense.
Yeah, I know. Process. I know. Yeah. Okay. Any further questions or comments for Kevin? Okay, we'll go to the next one, which is a report on the last chance grade.
Okay, so last chance grade, we have been working on the geotech drilling in order to get information about some of the different alternatives. That is 75% complete with the third phase occurring right now, which is the most complicated portion of the geotechnical drilling, which includes helicoptering in the equipment to some of the more remote locations. I wanted to note that tonight is there's a virtual town hall that's starting at 6:30, hosted by Senator McGuire, Congressman Huffman, and Assemblymember Wood. You can find a link to register for the town hall on Senator McGuire's website. The project team is sending out invitations for 4 working groups for the first series of meetings starting this December to talk about narrowing down the current list of alternatives so that we can save money and time on future studies. One of the big goals on everybody's mind is to look for any and all opportunities to accelerate the project. And that's my update.
Thank you, Kevin. So we've had kind of a very dry summer into fall, and so that probably was really helpful up there. But any concerns about a wet winter? Any forecasts of big downpours?
Yeah, Del Norte County is, one of the wettest counties in California, and so yes, there's definitely a correlation between rainfall and landslides, and that's something that we have monitoring equipment in the ground to measure any sort of changes in the level of the ground. And then we also have cameras that are available. You can view those online to see the kind of current state of things. So things are constantly being monitored, and there's a series of projects ongoing in the last chance grade area. So we have boots on the ground, people that are constantly in the area, and there's a couple of big walls going in, and they've been doing a lot of paving and adding fill to get the ground more level and smooth.
Yeah, great. Just I love the idea of prioritizing moving it forward, because it's just a question of time here for sure with some of that. Any questions or comments for Kevin on that? Thank you very much for the update, Kevin. Appreciate it. And then we finally have a report on the Eureka Arcata Safety Corridor patrols, and we actually have some statistics on our thing this time. Hi, Marcella.
Hi. So there's a lot of statistics. I'm going to try to keep it short for time, but September was a crazy month, so I'm just going to read what Sergeant Whitmer had sent me. But for August, we had a 25-year-old going 72 from Rialto, California, going 72 miles an hour, and two runners-up, a 22-year-old female from Arcata and a 49-year-old male from Eureka, both going 70.
Well, it's nice to know the young people from my hometown are representing well.
Well, you're not done yet. So,
no, I mean Rialto, California. That's where I grew up.
I thought you meant Eureka. Well, hopefully it wasn't a family member.
I was just gonna a visitor. Okay.
So I'm not sure what happened in September, but we have a 21-year-old man from Arcata going 68 miles an hour. He failed to yield and led the officer in a pursuit. Eventually, the suspect stopped, and basically he told the officer he didn't think he needed to stop for the officer. He was arrested and given a driver's license reevaluation.
Wow.
The second incident was a Eureka man traveling 77 miles per hour. Upon stopping, the officer discovered that the vehicle was stolen. The male and female occupants were detained. A loaded gun was found. Where they were seated, methamphetamine was also found. Both the passengers had felony warrants, and they were arrested as well. They were arrested for possession of gun and drugs and a stolen vehicle, all three. This driver had a suspended license, and they were both on probation as well. The third incident was a male driver was stopped on the corridor. He was unlicensed and on probation. He was detained, and the officer located a loaded gun, drugs, and drug paraphernalia, and he was arrested and the vehicle impounded. Number 4, 3 drivers were stopped for speeding and cited for driving on a suspended license. 1 driver was cited for driving while unlicensed. And 1 driver was stopped and cited for having an open container, but not a DUI, just the open container. So September had 1 person going 76 miles an hour, and I won't give you all the cities, but they both local and out of the area. 1 person going 75, 1 person 72, 2 people 72, and 6 people going 70 miles an hour in September.
Wow.
October was good. It's not as long, but the arrests included a meth salesman, a heroin salesman who resisted arrest. Or he was an unlicensed driver, and a drug DUI that was resisting arrest. And the big time winners were someone from LA going 80 miles per hour, someone from Eureka 75 miles per hour, and 2 people, one from Yuba City and one from Santa Rosa going 74 miles per hour. So that was pretty startling. The September was amazing.
Yeah. I was talking to somebody the other day that said, if you're going to break the law, only break one at a time. So if you're going to be carrying drugs in your car, don't speed. Do the safety.
Or have a gun. Yeah,
but
so
I mean, the kind of drugs that are mentioned, it just tells you don't have somebody who's really got very good judgment. Like 77 miles an hour in the safety corridor. Yeah. Wow, scary stuff. Well, I'm glad that they're there. They're going to continue, or are they going to take a break now?
They're going to still continue. We just renewed a contract, I think, in October, so they'll go through October. Okay. And at that time, it should be right around the same time that the Indianola undercrossing will begin development. I hope, fingers crossed, Kevin. So when that happens, part of the construction was there will be officers on there the whole time. So we probably, but that'll be a decision for the board to make next October. But I would guess that it wouldn't be necessary, but that'll be your decision.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Marcella. That was an interesting one for sure. So at this point, the next item on the agenda, the last item on the agenda, is a closed session. So the way we're going to work this, as we discussed earlier, is that we will be, those of us that stay in the closed session will remain, and those who don't will leave. But we do have to announce what's in closed session. So it's the intention of the HCAOG Board of Directors to meet in closed session to consider the appointment for the position of Executive Director pursuant to Section 54957 of the Government Code. And Debbie, could. Okay.
That was quick.
Christy, is Access Humboldt back on?
And then we can't hear you very well, Christy. Are we good? Are we good to go? Can anybody hear?
She said just a couple minutes.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Debbie.
Should I let him in? I would. Okay, I just want to report out that we don't have anything to report out at this time.
Thank you, Debbie. And
May I
with
make,
that,
when I make one more thing before we adjourn, I just want to mention here that our own Marcella May received the Coalition for Responsible Transportation Priorities Award. She was named because of her exceptional work, and she was given a golden bike bell. And I don't know if that's the dog we're hearing in the background, but anyway, this was.
Yeah, that wasn't Caesar.
Okay. All right, but anyway, congratulations on your award, and of course to your staff who always support you so well.
Absolutely.
And a lovely picture in the paper.
Thank you.
thank you. Congratulations, Marcella.
Thank
And wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Got lots to be thankful for. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.